I am Miroslav Umlauf, former Chief Data Officer of Avast, the online security company. Nowadays I focus on other data projects and I work with universities around the world on creation of data-centric study programs. Today I will talk about barriers which organizations face while adopting AI. The adoption of new technologies has been a recurring theme for companies. Technologies such as ERP, CRMs, big data, data warehouses, and today machine learning and AI have been seducing companies for some time. But not every company has been successful in implementing these. Yes, some of them have seen the benefits in more effectiveness and efficiency, but others got heavier, lost profitability, and today they feel threatened by being disrupted by others. I see three main reasons why the implementation of new technologies hasn't been universally successful. Firstly, the technology itself is often ahead of companies' capabilities. There are expensive technology investments made which are today weight and not enabler for change. And it's not appealing decision for management of the companies to write them off. Then there is a concept of literacy, technology, data, or digital literacy. The skills the people in the company have to use the technology, and this is not widespread in the organizations. Secondly, unrealistic expectations driven by hyped technologies lead to massive disappointment. You can have a manager, decision maker who falls under the myth that the technology is the solution for the problem. I call it an App Store myth. Notion of it is that there is always an app in the App Store which solves my problem. Take, for instance, time management. It's a breeze to install an AI-powered time management app onto your phone. But the value creation, that you have more time for things that matter to you, it's about the commitment and utilizing the app. And imagine installing such a solution to an organization where hundreds of people need to commit and change their behavior to create the value. Thirdly, organizational implications are often not understood or addressed by those who develop the technology or who implement it. And companies often don't have the data which would show them challenges they will face while introducing the new technology to their landscape, to their processes. There are tons of lessons learned from projects involving implementation of ERPs, CRMs. These got translated into knowledge which is available in the form of tools and frameworks today to companies which can guide them to identify areas where implementation of AI could create most value. Assessing organizational maturity and running experiments. These two tools provide data to the company when it comes to deciding what to implement, where, and in what order. But figuring out how will always remain a challenge. And when it comes to adoption of AI technology, speed of execution or speed of smart execution is the key success factor. And that's, again, all about the people.
Next, we've got Tervel Shopov, our CE AI and Data Strategy Director, and he'll be talking about challenges when adopting AI.
Thank you, Jan. Thank you, Miroslav. Hello, everyone. My name is Tervel Shopov, and I'm the AI and Data Director for Strategy in Deloitte Central Europe. What I do is that I help companies to succeed when it comes to analytics, AI, and data. This year, Gordon Moore, the co-founder of Intel Corporation, has passed away. Back in the 60s, Mr. Moore has predicted that the development of technology is going to be exponential. And this premise is still valid up until today. The recent developments in the area of generative AI are a very nice example. The development of technology and the pace of it keeps increasing, and it's not going to slow down. And if we look in the field of archaeology, we will see that the evolution is not happening gradually, but rather in leaps of rapid change. And the same is valid for technology. I personally believe that we are currently witnessing one of these leaps. Why? For a very long time, the interface between human brain and computers was a huge bottleneck. Think about it. The limitless human brain and the powerful machines that we have created communicate together via old school means such as mouse, keyboard, touch, recently perhaps voice and gestures. But these are still very narrow channels to connect these two powerful entities. This is why people like Elon Musk are obsessed with the idea of Neuralink, connecting the human brain and the machine seamlessly via an implanted microchip. I don't think we are quite there yet, but I believe the recent developments in the area of large language models will completely transform how we communicate with computers and will broaden this channel. While this is all very exciting, we need to ask ourselves, what does this mean for the business? 1/3 of the companies admit poor effectiveness of their current operating models when it comes to analytics. 59% of companies don't use AI at all, be it because it's not a priority for them, because they want to but they are lacking the skills and the capability, or simply because they don't have the senior sponsorship and needed funding. 88% of companies struggle with integration and compatibility of machine learning technologies. And in the past year, we have seen a 29% increase among respondents that self-identify as underachievers when it comes to AI. Our teams in the US have performed a study by analyzing 3 million pages of data about Fortune 500 companies and by looking at the actions these companies take when it comes to digital technologies and correlating these actions with their financial performance indicators. The results were twofold. Firstly, as we would expect, it was proven that the digital technologies represent a huge opportunity. But on the other side, the study shows that if the actions taken are not right, digital technologies may result into erosion of value and of market capitalizations of the largest companies in the world. So how can companies cope with this opportunity versus risk? I have been in the field of AI and data for more than 10 years. And over this time, I have observed a pattern of companies that are successful when it comes to adoption of AI and data technologies. The first characteristic is having AI and data strategy in place. In fact, companies that have AI strategy are 1.7 times more likely to achieve their goals. And enterprises know that. 45% of enterprises are currently developing or redeveloping their data, analytics, and/or AI strategy. Now, what I mean when I say AI strategy, let me share a few examples. Firstly, companies need to intentionally decide what it means for them specifically to use AI technologies. There is a big difference if you decide that you want to use AI technologies for achieving operational excellency and automating your processes, versus if you decide that you want to use the technology to transform your business model and introduce new data-driven products to the market. Secondly, companies need to be intentional about where they want to build internal competence that they will treat as a competitive advantage versus which solutions they will buy as a commodity from the market. And lastly, organizations need to make sure that these topics are well represented on the board level. Because, and especially with the large corporations, this is still often not the case. Second characteristic of successful company when it comes to AI and data adoption is usability. I'll explain what I mean by usability on the example of ChatGPT. Sam Altman, the OpenAI CEO, himself admitted that it was not the underlying model that made ChatGPT so successful. If we look at how ChatGPT is built, at the core of it, there are these so-called large language models. These are very robust, trained on vast amounts of data, consuming huge amounts of resources. But on its own, these models are not really usable. However, by adding a layer of reinforcement learning with human feedback, and by packaging the solution into a chatbot interface, ChatGPT has truly become an amazingly usable product. And we can share an example from the corporate environment as well. Many companies today are trying to predict which of their customers are going to leave them for their competition. Now you can develop the best model with the highest accuracy ever, but if you fail to translate the result of the model into a usable action for those at the front desk of your enterprise, you will never be able to capitalize on the investment that you made in the model in the first place. And lastly, the third characteristic of successful companies when it comes to AI and data adoption is culture. Or to be more specific, let's call it the ability to change. I'll go back to the study that we have performed in the US. We have looked at 3 different types of actions the companies take. Having digital strategy in place, making the technological investments, and having the ability to change. And while we would all expect that the most positive combination is the full trifecta, having the strategy, making the investments, and having the ability to change, what was surprising is that the most negative combination with the highest erosion of value is when you have the strategy in place, you make your investments in technology, but you lack your ability to change. So to summarize, companies that are successful when it comes to adoption of AI and data technologies have AI and data strategy in place. They focus on usability with all the solutions that they developed. And they encourage culture and internal ability to change. Now, I'm very excited about what is to come. I hope that you are too. And I hope that these points will help us all to cope with it a little better. Now over to Kristina Tomschu, who is our subject matter expert on the area of NLP, and she will tell you more about the specific applications in business. Thank you.